Hi, I'm Kesenya and welcome to Guiding Star Astrology. I'm your Astro Weather Girl, here with this week's Astro Weather Report. I'm going to show you how the stars are going to affect your life this week. To get the most out of this video, listen to the intro so that you know what's going to affect you and when it's going to happen in the week ahead. Lastly, use the timestamps in the description to go to your rising sign, sun sign and moon sign in order to learn how things will affect you personally. I'd like to point out that this will be a general read. We're looking at the general influence of the stars upon our life. If you would like to know something more specific about your life and how the stars are specifically interacting with you, I would suggest getting a reading with a professional astrologer. You can do so with me through the link in the description below if you would like. I'd like to give a special welcome to anyone who is new to astrology. You're so welcome here at this channel. If you would like to learn to read your own astrology chart, I offer a short course. It's very cheap and it's lots of fun. The link is in the description below. To all of my friends who join me here each week, who like and share my videos and subscribe to my channel, I do love you. To my gold and silver and bronze star family members, I do pray for you every day. I thank the universe for your presence in my life. If anyone would like to join the Guiding Star family, the link is also in the description below. And now to this week's spotlight. You've caught me! Are you wondering when love will come into your life? Did you know that it takes at least 3 energy triggers to bring love into a person's life? And that there are 62 different triggers for bringing love into your life? If you're an aspiring astrologer, this is something you need to know, as the #1 question astrologers get asked is, when is love coming into my life? Why not join me for my course in finding out when love will come? Find it out for yourself, find it out for your clients. Let's learn together when the stars will align for love. The link to my astrology course is in the description below. And remember, every one of us deserves to know love.
With nothing to do.
Well, what a fascinating week we have in store, my friends. Thanks for joining me. There is so much going on. We've got some intense aspects forming, and we have, of course, the second eclipse in this mid-year series that we're in. But first of all, we're going to be having some really good days this week on the 7th and 8th. This is when the moon's final aspect that it makes before it leaves a sign is positive, therefore it's good for initiation within reason, because remember, we are in Mercury retrograde season, which means things should not be started. Rather, they should be planned and structured and organized, ready to implement when Mercury goes direct. So keep that in mind. It's a good day to perhaps initiate a new plan or initiate a new list of something that you want to accomplish in the future. So use the 7th and the 8th to your advantage in that sense. And of course, we should never start anything or implement anything under a void of course moon. You might want to check out an app that tells you when the moon is void of course so that you can make the right choices. If you're the kind of person who likes to govern your life, moment by moment by the stars in that way. Personally, I don't. Just for what it's worth, I am very, I have Jupiter rising, and I prefer to just let go and let God. I'm Pisces, I want to just flow with what the universe wants from me. I feel my life is most governed by fate, actually, and I'm happy to go with whatever the universe gives me and work with it as best I can. And that's where I feel astrology helps me to work with whatever I'm given best I can. But I know that there are some people out there who like to have a sense of control over their moment by moment experience. So that's why I'm giving you these days to work with best. And if you're after a good app that will tell you about the void of course moon, you might want to look at one like iLuna. which is a really good app that's totally devoted to void of course. As for the out of bounds planets this week, we really only have Venus for the majority of the week being out of bounds, and that means anything that is governed by Venus in your chart and anything that Venus rules in your chart is where you might feel a little bit out of control, maybe highly creative, highly full of new innovation, but perhaps a little bit roller coastery and not quite knowing what to expect. Things go beyond the normal bounds with an out of bounds planet, and they can go to extremes. So where is Taurus in your chart? In whole sign astrology, what house does Taurus govern? And where is Libra in your chart? What house does Libra govern? This is where we might be feeling just a little bit out of the ordinary. Now, before I get to the breakdown of the aspects that are occurring this week, I just want to point out, if you missed my spotlight in the intro, that because it is solstice month, and in Australia it happens to be the end of financial year, I'm offering discounts on all my readings, all of them. I think I offer about, I don't know, there might be 8 or 9 different readings that I offer. They are all, some of them up to $50 off. So if you have always wanted a reading with me, but price has been inhibitive, check out my readers page and book yourself a reading for the end of Australian financial year and solstice month, June. Now, right out of the gate this week, on the 5th and the 6th of June, this will be active. We are having an opposition that is really no fun at all. And this is the opposition between Mars and Pluto, Cancer to Capricorn. Now, this is what we're going to be talking about in the all signs breakdown. So it's a pretty heavy duty astro weather report this week, but as I always say, to be forewarned is forearmed. You will know how to navigate the energy. And that's the purpose of astrologers, is it not? To help guide you. Certainly my channel is known as Guiding Star, to guide you with the energies that are coming up so that you can get the best out of them. On the 5th and 6th of June, Pluto and Mars go opposite one another. What's this going to bring? Well, both of these planets are known for their intensity and their passion, so we're going to get a full-on amplification of intensity, passion, anger, aggression, a Mars territory as well. And when they're intensified by this opposition aspect to Pluto, it just goes to the extreme. Plus, we get even violence can occur on this day. It's a couple of days actually, the 5th and the 6th, where this will be active. So the reason that violence can occur is because on their own, sometimes these planets can do okay, and when I say okay, they're doing their intense, passionate work in usually ways that can manifest, especially if we happen to be a high vibrational person, that help us and support us in our journey. But when they are making a hard aspect, a difficult opposition, it's like they're at two polarities. Well, they are at two polarities. They're at two extremes. And this is sort of trying to balance the seesaw that can be a little bit out of control with this. So both of these energies, Pluto is trauma and abuse, Mars is violence in its extreme shadow side, and so we can see these two exacerbating that kind of thing. Of course, Mars is competition and Pluto wins at all costs. Its willpower is second to none. It wants dominance and control and power. So when we've got dominance, control and power with Pluto, meeting Mars, the one who has to win all the time to be the victor, then what's happening is we've got a highly competitive state. And this competitive state is happening between you and everybody else in the world. Everyone's going to feel this because this is a transiting energy. Now, if you've got planets around 26 degrees of Capricorn, Cancer, Aries or Libra, you're going to feel this even stronger because it will be conjuncting, opposing or squaring those personal planets in your chart, and you will feel this intensely. Of course, with the opposition here too, it's a case of us and them, me and everybody else. And in the case of Mars and Pluto, it's your personal will and desire versus the collective will and desire, which is represented by Pluto. So this real animosity is going to be present on the weekend. Competition will be heightened, aggression will be heightened, frustration will be heightened, angry responses will be heightened. Being forewarned and forearmed is a good thing coming up into this energy. And due to the opposition, it is other people that are going to trigger this in us. You know, someone comes along, like cuts us off in the traffic and we lose it. We might usually be quite okay. We're totally present and mindful and in the moment. So we're driving along the highway, but on the weekend, get ready guys, because the actions of other people, for example, cutting you off in traffic, will throw you over the edge. Other people are going to trigger passion, anger, aggression, and violence in your life. A violent reaction in you, or they might instigate aggression, anger, and violence at you. Doesn't it make you just want to curl up at home in bed and read a book all weekend? No, that's my plan. This is also a very physical energy because Mars is it's not that it's very much in the body, but it rules muscles and the energetic expression of our physical self. So Mars energy, it being exacerbated in this really difficult manner by Pluto, takes things to a physical manifestation. With that in mind, to all my beautiful viewers who I love dearly, who are in really difficult life circumstances, maybe you live with an abusive partner, you can't get away, maybe you're in a home life or a domestic situation that is a bit fraught with tension. Maybe you're just in a situation where there's a lot of anger. It doesn't have to be physical violence. It can just be a lot of verbal anger and what have you. I want to just encourage you, be prepared for this weekend. Take whatever actions you need to sort of keep your situation as neutral as possible. Now that might mean going and paying a visit to your mum, going and staying with a girlfriend for a weekend, or maybe going camping in the woods. Get away from your circumstances if you are in those sorts of dodgy environments. I would just encourage you. And there's been a couple of times this year when I've had to mention that in my videos, but I feel it's important to do so because I just want everyone to lead the happiest, most beautiful lives possible and to avoid those abusive situations that we hear so often about in the media. So be careful because this weekend could be one of those weekends when that energy is heightened. Now, our feelings of fight or flight response are also exacerbated under this energy. No surprises there. Our cortisol levels are going to be higher than usual this weekend. So even if nothing is wrong with our external circumstances in life, we might be feeling this. Just a sense of agitation, a sense of frustration that's just there below the surface that we can't explain. Again, it's the heightened cortisol fight or flight response that the energy of these planets is bringing out in us. So be aware, and that can be the trigger that causes us to fight so quickly and swiftly if we are triggered because the cortisol levels are heightened already due to this energy. Because of the opposition, which always represents events that happen through the triggering of other people in our lives or the influence of other people in our lives, that's how oppositions work. Because of this, we might find that somebody sabotages us. It's unlikely with this energy that we self-sabotage. More likely, the Pluto desire for power in others can sabotage our efforts in some way. So maybe cool our heels for a bit if we have a project that we want to sort of put out there, or if we are, needing to submit an assignment or something like that. Maybe if we can put it off for a couple of days until after this energy dissipates, cool our heels, then we might avoid some sabotaging that comes from others. On that topic, it can feel like powerful forces beyond our control, which is a Pluto energy, are somehow influencing us in ways that we can't explain. Pluto does, a bit like Neptune actually, corresponds to the energies that are beyond the Earth plane. But some might say the dark energies, but look, there's shadow and light in everything. But he's about other worlds. Now, that can be powerful energies that move through other planes, but it can also be difficult let's call them, for the lack of a better word, evil energies that move through the world. Perhaps, you know, a lot of people believe in the forces of evil that are sort of getting a foothold in the world through the COVID virus and the control and power in high levels of government and so on. Pluto in Capricorn is that kind of influence. It's obviously going to be quite interesting, and I'm so looking forward to seeing Pluto move into Aquarius in a couple of years, when we see power and control move through the people and the masses, which is the energy of Aquarius. I'm like, bring that on. We're so ready for it. But it can feel like there are powerful forces against the will of individuals now. Certainly where I am in Australia, not all of Australia, just the region where I live has gone into our 4th lockdown due to a COVID outbreak, and people are suffering with business closures again, and they're wondering how they're going to pay the mortgage, how they're going to put the roof over their head, and feed their children, like things like that. It's just so ridiculous now. But these forces from governmental authorities where I live, it's beyond people's control. And they realize, yeah, they get that they have to do this if they want to sort of contain the outbreak and what have you, for sure. I'm not going to go on one side or another with the whole COVID thing. But suffice to say that these powers, these forces that are beyond a person's individual control, that is exactly what's happening in where I live in Australia right now. And we may see it perhaps not in the same way or through the same scenario, but maybe in other ways we might notice that it's present in the world in some way coming up this weekend, where forces beyond our control feel like they are against us as individuals. Now, speaking of forces out of our control, I observed this morning as I was setting up to do my recording that outside my window out there, they're preparing to do some street work. So if there's a big noise in the background before long in this recording, well, there are some forces out of my control that I can't help, and I apologize in advance for any background noise that this video or any other videos that I record today might have. So what can we do? Well, we can keep our morals and our ethics pure now, you know, try and keep your integrity about you. Pluto and Mars in this combination might want to manipulate other people, might want to sabotage other people, coerce other people, use standover tactics on other people. Might find we're sort of being pulled into some sort of violent manipulation. Of course, all these things are not what we want to be known as people. And so keeping our integrity, keeping our purity and our vibration high is going to require conscious effort and awareness on this day. So keep conscious, keep aware. Also, I would just encourage you to be aware of sexual predators. Now, I sincerely hope that no one has to deal with this that I'm talking to here on my video. But then if you're in the dating scene, it might be a good idea not to go out on a date this weekend, to cancel any dates and postpone it till sort of, you know, mid next week or something, so that you do not come under the influence of Mars Pluto and end up, let's say, in the clutches of a sexual predator. Okay, so please, 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 my friends, be careful if you are dating this weekend. Essentially, despite the fact that I've told you to keep conscious and keep aware and present, people around us who are not awakened and not functioning at a high level of consciousness, they will actually be unable to control their impulses. Pluto opposite Mars, impulses are out of control. So be conscious of that and compassionate towards that as you go through your daily life. Now, on the plus side, because remember there's shadow and light in everything, and even though this is a difficult energy, there's still something positive we can take from this. If you are in a loving sexual relationship, then under this energy, your endurance levels can be very high, and you might like to make the most of it. In fact, your sex drive and your libido can be just out of the box, like full on. Pluto is willpower to the extreme, directed at Mars on these 2 days. So, you know, you might find that an enjoyable thing that you can transmute into your existence. Why not if you're in that position? Enjoy it. But your endurance in general is going to be heightened. So if you need to run a marathon, if you have to, race in a car race, if you have to do weightlifting or wrestling or something like that, and you're using endurance levels and muscles in your body, Mars's muscles, you're going to have the ability to go beyond your usual capabilities. So if you need to set a world record in some sports or something, aim for doing it this weekend, because the energy is on your side. So as I said, there is positive in everything. So like I said, collective will this week meets personal will. So let's have just a brief little look back at some of the events that occur when we have a Mars-Pluto opposition like this. And it happens every 2 years. So we get this couple of days every 2 years when we experience Mars opposite Pluto. And some of the things in history that occur, I'm not going to give specific events, but these, I just went back through the last 10, 20 years and had a look at the main themes of historical events, and we get things like world events to do with world first surgeries. There's a lot of, if you go back through these days and do the research, you'll see that world first surgeries occur. I think the most recent one was a world first in utero surgery that occurred during a Pluto-Mars opposition. And of course, Pluto and Mars both have to do with surgery. So there's a good event coming out of this opposition. Pluto and Mars and world first surgery. Highly competitive situations that often occur, like a big race, like a Grand Prix or something like that might occur, or that sort of thing can happen in world history, has happened frequently during these days. Usually with big winners too. I'm not just talking about sports events, but we've seen big sort of, any sort of competition like Jeopardy or something, big Jeopardy wins and, big sale of the century wins, that kind of thing have occurred under this energy, because the energy of competition is high, and the results and the rewards from the god of great wealth, Pluto, are high as well. So competition with big winners and big outcomes. We have seen, although not the most significant recent manifestations of this energy, but throughout the course of the last, say, 20 years of these oppositions, we have seen a repeating cycle of police officers being killed. Police officers are ruled by Mars. Police officers either being killed at work or police officers killing others under this energy. Now, we're not quite there yet, but as I'm recording this on the news this morning, we had a firefighter, also another energy connected with Mars, another occupation connected with Mars. A firefighter shot up some of his colleagues and then went and killed himself. As I was getting this all set up this morning, I heard that on the news. So kind of in that zone already with that kind of energy of killing. Mars, Pluto is that kind of energy. So there was also a lot of talk of war over the last 20 years of these oppositions. Talk of war on these days. So one headline that I read was Iran threatens war against the US because of a military strike that went wrong. Things like that. So there's a lot of media headlines that have to do with war, war, war. And of course, as this is also a positive energy, we can have significant sports milestones, somebody breaking a world record in this, that, or the other, that have occurred, I should say, over the historical last 20 years of these conjunctions. So very interesting to look and research at how these energies play out. Now we're going to be talking about this energy as we come to our all signs breakdown. So join me for that. But before we get into that, I do want to also mention the other energies that are playing out this week, and the main one, which I will be talking about in a separate video, and particularly the personal breakdown for each sign and each axis in the horoscope as well. I'll be doing that for my Patreons, who I adore, mwah, and I love, and I'm so grateful every day for. So that is going to be occurring up here. We've got the eclipse energy falling at 19 degrees of Gemini, and this is a solar eclipse, which is basically a new moon that is eclipsed. It's going to be quite a fascinating one if you live high up in the northern hemisphere, sort of around Greenland and Canada and places like that. You'll really get quite a spectacle. Now, it's a very fresh new moon in the sign of Gemini. It's also quite a feisty new moon as well, which I will break down in the video that I've talked about. But it's also calling us to mind our communication with one another, because Mercury will be in a conjunction with this new moon as well. So communication is going to be one of the big themes. It's in Gemini and it's conjunct with Mercury. Mercury who's retrograding, so things coming back from the past, old lovers, old friends, old connections, old thought patterns and belief systems coming back from the past to be dealt with and communicated to others or with others as well. Communications are the big theme. And whatever happens under this eclipse is going to be very significant. So if an old lover comes back, that is a significant energy to pay attention to. If an old friend shows up, realize that there's some significant life lesson or experience that you need to undergo with that particular energy. One thing though is that solar eclipses tend to relate most to the world's leaders, whereas lunar eclipses relate most to the masses and the experiences of the masses. And we've seen that. It's the masses, for example, where I live in Victoria, that are undergoing another 4th lockdown. We may be seeing other things happening to the masses around the world. That's the one that's most present in the forefront of my experience right at this moment in time. But it's the masses who are receiving the results of the lunar eclipse. Now, after this solar eclipse, we might start to see some influence on world leaders, on kings, on queens, on presidents and prime ministers and things, where that's where the influence can play out. Not just governing bodies either, sort of celebrities are a sun solar energy. So celebrities, we might be seeing some influence in power players in the world, authority figures. So keep your eyes on the news, because Mercury and Gemini are both connected to the news and information and where the action is. And I would say that there will be some sort of unexpected news that comes out. Something will be revealed in the news that will be of a very significant influence on our life on Earth. Solar eclipses also the influence that happens to us as individuals, especially if we have planets around 19 degrees of Gemini or around 19 degrees of any of the mutable signs, which are Sagittarius, Pisces, and Virgo as well. If you've got planets around 19 degrees or significant points like an ascendant or a midheaven around 19 degrees, then you might find that external events happen in your reality that influence your personal life. So that's how solar eclipses rather work. Lunar eclipses work as your inner energy changes, and then that alters your reality. It's the reverse with a solar eclipse, where the external things change and your whole world changes. I kind of prefer those eclipses just out of preference, as long as the changes coming are good, and let's hope they are. And if you caught my video 2 weeks ago with Joanna, my other astrologer who I collaborate with at Guiding Star, we talk extensively about the energy of this set of eclipses, the first one 2 weeks ago and this one. Check out that video, because we talk about the Saros cycle in depth for these eclipses, and that's so important to know about because it colors the energy of these eclipses. So pop back in my list. You'll see it on my YouTube page. There's a video there right predominantly in the forefront, and you can check out all about this Saros cycle with Joanna and I. The good news is that it's a Saros cycle that's quite beautiful, and it will bring beautiful results that could play out over the next 6 months. So external events that could happen, they might seem like a bit of upheaval at first, but the ultimate result over the next 6 months is going to be more positive. As I said, I'll break that down for each sign in my Patreon video. If you want to join my Patreon page, pop to the link below. I would love to have you join me there. We've also got some really exciting new teaching astrology videos and insights that are coming out, as well as predictions and forecasts that I give every week. The final energy this week is a conjunction of not the moon and the sun this time, which is the solar eclipse, but rather the conjunction of the sun and Mercury. And this has already happened not so long ago, but now Mercury is in retrograde motion, coming backwards across the sun. And so we're getting a retrograde Mercury in conjunction with the sun. So be ready to do a little bit of localized travel at this time. You might need to retrace some steps to go over some travel that you've taken. Like maybe you went for a holiday at a B&B, you know, 3 hours away from where you live, and you've got to go back and collect a sweater that you left there or something. So there could be some retracing of steps in terms of localized travel that you need to undertake for one reason or another. Under this energy, which is occurring on the 11th of June, I should add, and check out the times in the description box below to find out what time it's happening in your part of the world. But it's a really good energy to go for a bike ride or a walk or a paddle. Like Gemini energy and Mercury energy is all about taking short trips, you know, and movement and transport that takes us from A to B. It could be walking across a bridge from one side of the city to another. It could be going for a bike ride in the park. Like this is a lovely energy to enjoy little localized trips, and you'll really be invigorated by doing those sorts of things. You might feel more social, you might feel more curious, and it's quite a busy energy. You might be really in the mood to share new ideas with others and to communicate and talk, especially coming after the eclipse. Talking will be amplified because of the eclipse energy, and you'll just want to share and connect and socialize. I would also just encourage you to, it's a great energy for researching, not instigating new business activities, but for researching anything to do with business deals, trade, and learning, education, workshopping, that sort of thing, in readiness for taking action when Mercury goes direct. So use it as your researching opportunity. I'm going to be teaching live workshops in the future, and I'm in a position where I'm researching how I'm going to put that together. I'm getting all my equipment together to do those live workshops. If you are in Victoria or Southern New South Wales in Australia, and would like me to host a workshop afternoon, maybe as a, you know, a hen's afternoon perhaps, or, you know, just a get together to teach you how to read, you and your friends, how to read your chart, then I am going to be available for those kinds of activities. All you'll have to do is send me a message via my website, guidingstarrastrology.com. written below, and yeah, I'd love to do that with you. So if you are interested, get in touch, but I'm not going to be actually doing that until after Mercury finishes going retrograde. I'm just giving you the word beforehand, so I'm not implementing it yet. It's in the planning stages, the researching, the development stage, and then when Mercury goes direct, boom, we'll start doing those small workshops. And that's the wrap up for the energy this week. Well, they're quite intense energies. We've got this opposition, we've got an eclipse. It's pretty full on, but there's not a lot else happening. So in one way, that's kind of good. We get to sort of hold our breath and push through the rather big energies that are going to pack a punch this week. But let's find out how it's going to affect each sign. Why don't we go completely out of the box and start with Virgo, Virgo rising, sun or moon, because Virgo people haven't had the chance to be out of the gate first off for quite some time. So if you are Virgo rising, sun or moon, then we are seeing Pluto opposite Mars energy falling on the 11th house, 5th house axis. And this is quite an interesting axis with this energy because Mars is the energy of the self-will in the house of the masses. So the will of the masses is going to be very much affecting you this week, this weekend, particularly Virgo people. The will of the masses might be under heavy duty fire, if you like, from the authority figures, and you might feel this very strongly and personally in some way. What might be an example of this? Well, you know, maybe you're observing around you some sort of heavy energy coming down to bear from celebrities. Fifth house is, say, celebrity people, popular figures, politicians as well, coming down, bearing hard on your friends. And you might be observing your friends, 11th house, really suffering because of some kind of new rule, new regulation that the politicians or some popular energy of the celebrity culture is affecting in some way your friends. Maybe your friends' ability to assert themselves or to feel a sense of confidence perhaps in the world. There can also be some criticism, some dislike and some anger coming from Pluto sectors to your friends as well. So you might have somebody who may be a localized celebrity, not talking about a Kardashian or anything like that, but a localized celebrity kind of person, fifth house is celebrities, in your town, who criticizes your friend or criticizes a social activist group that you're involved in, or criticizes a humanitarian movement that really means something to you. And you're just like tearing your hair out with this criticism and this dislike coming from Pluto to something that's actually quite meaningful for you in the collective. You know, they might criticize, you're a big fan of the Who Gives a Crap toilet paper. I don't know if you've heard of that overseas, but certainly in Australia there's a company called Who Gives a Crap that are very environmentally oriented toilet roll providers. And with lockdowns and stuff, toilet paper is a big deal. So, you know, that's a humanitarian movement trying to do good in the world, and maybe a celebrity sort of bags that out, and, you know, your best friend has piles and piles of this Who Gives a Crap toilet paper in their toilet, and they're feeling really, you know, really like, oh, really low, really despondent, or really frustrated, maybe even. That's probably more the expression, because some celebrity has disparaged this thing they really align with and attune with, this humanitarian business that your friend is supporting, and somebody's come out against it and they're just grr. So energy, animosity, dislike, anger really is stirred up inside friendship groups. Now, because that's not affecting you so personally, Virgo, you can be a powerful force in that instance of support and kindness, keeping your actions and motivations pure, and just providing that kind of supportive energy. Now, the one thing that I do need to warn you of, though, Pluto, is that with this energy playing out on this axis, be aware of sabotaging coming from friends or coming from groups who pull the rug out from under you, who undermine you. Groups that you belong to, or groups that you don't belong to, but like a large group in town sort of says you shouldn't be practicing astrology or something like that, and you're like, what? They sabotage your efforts for your own business in astrology, as an example. Or a friend is going behind your back and you don't realize it, and this energy sort of illuminates that that's what's going on, and they've been sabotaging you, and it comes to light now, it comes to bear now, and you get angry, get frustrated. Pluto Mars opposition on the axis where we're dealing with friendships. So be aware, be forewarned and forearmed, and navigate with as much integrity and grace as you can, Virgo people. Libra rising, sun or moon, well, we're seeing Pluto and Mars being in opposition on the 10th and 4th house axis. So for Libran people, there might be some criticism directed at Libran people coming from home, family, heritage, roots, lineage. And mum might ring you up and say, your haircut, terrible, time to change it. And you're like, frustrated, angry, cranky because of some criticism directed at you from the maternal line in some manner, Librans. And it may well be that you are criticized by that maternal line because of your career, because of what you do in the world, what you do for social notoriety and success and a sense of achievement and contribution to the greater good. You might be getting criticized from your home, your family, your maternal line or the nurturing parent line in some way. Or even somebody in your tribe, your intimate circle says, really, pull your head in. No, what you're doing is wrong. And you're like, I'm so angry. I'm so offended by that. Forewarned is forearmed. It could also be that some force from your past, from your childhood, from your heritage, your roots, your lineage is actually trying to sabotage something that you're doing. They don't think it's right, and they want to stop you, and so they've been praying against you or something like that, or doing something to stop you. I'm just thinking, I'm a Libra moon, and yeah, I'm like, oh no, I can see how this might play out in my life, and no, I don't want it to happen. Anyway, forewarned is forearmed, and we'll keep our integrity pure. If we get frustrated and angry over scenarios like this, we can observe with detachment and say, aha, Pluto opposite Mars energy, I get it, I see what's playing out. Forces outside our control. I'm just gonna, my plan is to grab my astrology books and hole up in bed and just read my books all weekend long. So have some strategies in place, how you're gonna deal with this to keep your integrity pure and not lose your proverbial under this energy, Libra. Be careful of forces outside your control coming from the maternal line that are not self-sabotage, that are sabotaging you at this time. Scorpio rising, sun or moon people. Well, we are seeing the energy of Mars opposite Pluto playing out in your 3rd house to the 9th house, and what this then indicates is that outside forces beyond your control, coming from maybe siblings, relatives, co-workers or teammates, directed at you, cause criticism, cause anger, cause disruption of a negative, aggressive variety in your life. And it might be that they're criticizing your higher knowledge. It might be that they are condemning your desire to travel or your open-minded, open-heartedness that is all embracing of other cultural beliefs and practices, and your relatives criticize that and run you down because of that and make you angry through something that they say or do. You might also be criticized as well for your beliefs by relatives, co-workers, teammates, or a workshop group that you participate in, which is a very much a 3rd house thing. You might participate in a workshop, and in that workshop you might share what you believe, what you think, which is a 9th house thing, and everyone just like, you know, claws come out. How dare you think that? And look out, dislike, anger, aggression coming at you because of your beliefs, Scorpio rising people, from 3rd house to 9th house. Also, it is also possible that somebody from a 3rd house realm might be sabotaging you. For example, your desire to go to university and do a higher learning course, or maybe your desire to, let's say if you want to do one of my astrology courses, which are considered to be, astrology is a higher learning subject, and you want to do one of Kesenya's astrology courses, but there's something that's sabotaging you, or someone that's sabotaging you from a 3rd house realm. Maybe your small business, which is a 3rd house thing, hasn't been going so well, so you don't have the funds to do that course. And there's like an energy of sabotage that's actually coming from the small business that's struggling. Or maybe, you know, there's a relative who demands your attention and energy, so you don't have the time to do some course or go to travel to some place or expand your knowledge and spiritual understanding in some way, which are all 9th house things, and some relative is sabotaging you. Now, they mightn't look like it on the outside. You know, their energy might just be like you've got a sick aunt in bed. She's always been your favorite auntie, and you just have to spend the next month looking after her. That mightn't look like a sabotaging action on the outside, but on the energy level, Pluto opposite Mars would tell us, yeah, there's some sabotage going on there. They don't want you. They're preventing you. They're keeping you from going for those 9th house things. So even like there's things going on in the world that we cannot see in the physical that are happening in the spiritual realm. And Pluto opposite Mars is an indication that there is some kind of sabotaging going on. Be aware of that. So it's coming from 3rd house people, which I've just described those people groups, to you in your personal experience of the 9th house. Okay, so Sagittarius, rising, sun or moon. How are you going, Sagittarius, after the recent eclipse in your sign? You would have felt it strongly, no doubt. But here with this week's energy, you've got this opposition from Pluto to Mars from the 2nd house to the 8th house. And this is where outside forces are influencing our ability to experience our own will and willpower in the 8th house. Outside forces in the 2nd house are money. And what is Pluto? Pluto can be energies in the ethereal, you know, not so much angels and so forth, but more sort of maybe darker energies, or our shadow side up in the ethereal realms, the shadow side of the self that is self-sabotaging us through not allowing us to have the funds we need, or the confidence we need, or the self-worth that we need to move into these 8th house things that we might want to experience. Let me give a scenario. Let's say that you want to do a course in shamanism, which is an 8th house thing, and you want to study some shamanism or develop skills in energy healing or do some psychology work or something, and go and see a psychologist, something like that potentially, or see a therapeutic healer, which all 8th house scenarios, okay, that I've just described there. But money is not forthcoming for you to do any of those things. And you're frustrated by it. And you're like, why, universe? I'm trying to heal my soul here. I'm trying to grow my knowledge here. I'm trying to update my skills here regarding shamanism, mysticism, therapeutic healing, psychological work to heal my inner child and all that kind of stuff. And you are not giving me the money. Forces outside your control, 2nd house, that are holding things back can be a manifestation of this energy. And there may even be some criticism and anger directed at you. Where is it coming from? Your own sense of self-worth. You might catch yourself really deflating your own ego this weekend through, why would you think you could be a shaman? What are you talking about? You have no skill in that realm whatsoever. Get practical, get real. You'll never, those kinds of deflating self-devaluation, self-talk that could be unfolding, and that could be coming from this opposition where Pluto is in the house of our self-worth and self-value. That influence on our self-worth and self-value that is sabotaging our ability to move into realms perhaps of healing, perhaps of therapy, perhaps realms where we are like might be called to manage another person's money. This is the house of other people's resources. And if you've been given governance, let's say, of a will, and you're the executor of somebody's will, or you are given responsibility to care for some community property or something, and yet there's an inner voice in you saying, who are you to think you can be the one to execute Aunt Margaret's will effectively? You know, you should give control of that over to somebody else because you're useless. Self-worth and self-value criticizing your ability to handle and manage other people's resources and money in some way. Self-sabotaging coming there. Now, usually Pluto represents forces outside of our control that sabotage us, but in the 2nd and the 1st house, we particularly see the self-sabotaging element expressing that way. So, yeah. Be aware of that. Keep your actions and motives as pure as possible now. And all I can suggest is act with conscious awareness. When you see yourself with those sorts of thought processes going on, stop, hole up and say, this is just a thought. It is not reality. I'm not going to buy into this. And you know you'll have to work on that for the next couple of days as we deal with this energy until it passes, and then you should be right to go. So Capricorn rising, sun or moon people. Well, interesting one for you guys. You have the energy of Pluto opposition Mars on the main axis in your chart, from the ascendant to the descendant, 1st house to the 7th house this week. And so this is really quite an interesting one, mainly because we've got kind of a switcheroo happening here. Mars is our personal willpower, usually correlated to the energy of the 1st house. And here is Pluto, which is the collective willpower of outside us, which is usually represented by the not the 8th house, the 7th house in this case, of other people and their will. So we are kind of got a reverse of this happening. Here is Pluto in the house of you and the self-will, opposing Mars in the house of other people. How does this manifest? Well, it could be criticism, dislike, great judgmentalism and anger, needing to control, coming from you, Capricorn people, and projecting onto others. So be very careful as a Capricorn person about your actions and the integrity that you're operating in with other people, because with this configuration, it could be that you are asserting yourself on other people in a way that could be maybe a bit aggressive, a bit critical, a bit judgy, and difficult for other people to handle. So be very conscious, be very aware of your own self-assertion and how it might be affecting the lives of people around you. Now, I'm not saying that this is your character, not by any stretch, but let's face it, we all have times when we can behave in ways that are not something we would be proud of. You know, we're coercive, we're manipulative, and we need to pull ourselves up when we see those actions in us. This is an energy where that might actually come out during the 2 days, the 5th and the 6th of June, when this is unfolding. Also, I want to point out, Capricorn people, that you could be sabotaging yourself and your relationships this weekend. So really be conscious, really be aware to help yourself not sort of fall into the trap. Pluto in the 1st house, opposition to Mars, can mean that you are doing things that stuff up relationships, foot in mouth, kind of overreactive energy, anger and aggression that's completely unfounded, that actually stuffs up your partnerships, your relationships, and your connections with other people, be it marriages, business partnerships, clients. Be very careful about how you could sabotage your own success in the world with this energy. So, forewarned is forearmed. This is not a criticism of you, Capricorn people, by any stretch. It's just saying this is the energy that's about to unfold. If you can handle it with awareness, thumbs up. Aquarius rising, sun or moon people have a very interesting axis that this Pluto-Mars opposition is falling on. Pluto-Mars, well, any opposition is about the relationship dynamic between us and other people. And here it's Mars, our self-will, with the will of the outside forces. And here in the 12th house, what are we looking at? The will of the ancestors, the will of divine forces beyond our control. Pluto is forces beyond our control for a start, and in the 12th house, which is sort of our past lives, our ancestors who have deceased, our energy self from our past incarnations as well, that's sitting there influencing our choices and decisions. That could be sabotaging, those energies could actually be sabotaging your ability to assert your will in the realm of the 6th house through your health, diet, exercise. So if you are Aquarian, let's say you have every intention to start a new health regime, new exercise regime, and new healthy eating and what have you, and yet, boom, you keep getting sabotaged and you can't explain why. You just keep going to that chocolate cupboard, or you go to the supermarket and you walk out with a trolley full of biscuits and chips rather than fruits and vegetables. Why is this happening? You know, I feel like I've been sabotaged, but every intent, every will of mine is to go healthy. Mars, willpower in the 6th house. But yet, look at me, something outside my control, and I've gone and bought a trolley full of junk food. So Pluto in the house of ancestors and other entities, other realms, that's influencing and sabotaging your ability to use your willpower for your health and your well-being. That's one expression that might happen this weekend. Again, it's a fleeting energy, a passing energy. Maybe you could put your willpower into action once this opposition is over, say in the middle of the week instead. You might also feel like there's a heavy energy on you guys, Aquarius. Like there's a weight that's there that you can't explain where it's coming from. And this could be some criticism, like a critical energy or an angry or a frustrated energy that is just sitting with you and you're like, what is this all about? It could actually be coming from previous incarnations where you were frustrated over a certain circumstance and you never dealt with that frustration, or you were angry, or you were traumatized in a certain circumstance and you were left angry. And so here with Pluto being activated by Mars, you're called to sort of address that frustration, that trauma, that Pluto wound, let's say, that is sitting with you quite heavily. And maybe because Mars, the planet of opposition, is in the 6th house, you might be being called to do some practical work to heal that. This is a house, the 6th house is the house of practical healing. How we restore ourselves with practical measures like going for a walk, deep breathing exercises, eating healthy, getting a good exercise, drinking plenty of water, meditating, all the activities, the practical activities we do in our daily routine that keep us balanced and fit and healthy are part of the 6th house. So I would encourage you to do practical work over this weekend to try and balance any heaviness, any frustration or anger that's sort of lying latent in you. It's likely with this opposition occurring the way it is in the chart that it's coming from previous incarnations and it needs addressing through practical measures. So also keep your actions and your motives pure this weekend, so that you don't sort of go into the creation of difficult karma for yourself. This is a karmic axis as well. So try and be very conscious and very aware of what you say and what you do so that you don't generate karma that then needs to be dealt with down the track. Okay, Pisces rising. How are you all enjoying Jupiter in your 1st house, Pisces rising people? Quite frankly, I haven't noticed any difference myself, but I would love you to put some comments in the comments below if you've noticed a shift in energy with Jupiter moving into your 1st house. I'd love to hear some stories along those lines. But here with Pisces rising or Sun or Moon, we've got the Pluto opposite to Mars axis falling in our 11th house to our 5th house. So how might this be working? Well, it's not all that fun, to be quite honest, because here we've got our Mars currently in the house of celebrity and our creative output and our ability to be creatively intelligent in the world. Mars wants to put its willpower and its energy into those things. Along comes Pluto opposition to it and says, outside force is going to stop you from doing that, Pisces people. In fact, so some crowd, some group, maybe even friends might sabotage your efforts to be able to put your creative work out there in the world. I'm trying to think of an illustration. Maybe you've it could be really nasty, quite honestly. Like maybe you've been working on a fashion show presentation. You've been doing some like a sewing school, and they're going to hold a fashion evening, and everyone's going to sort of wear their creations and walk it down the catwalk. And your particular creation, somebody from the sewing group that you're a part of is like, well, I don't want her to look so fantastic. I'm going to spill coffee on her beautiful white dress that she's made. Nasty, This is coming from groups, from subcultures, from friends, who actually haven't got our best interest in mind. Powerful forces beyond us that sabotage our ability to put our creativity out there in the world. And if we're talking about shadow sides, the shadow side of the 11th house can be groups and organizations that are quite dark, quite frankly. So, things like neo-Nazis and Ku Klux Klans, that's groups and organizations of a very shadow representation of the 11th house. Yucky things like that, that could be sabotaging your ability to assert yourself in the world, to, shine your light and your beauty. So be forewarned and forearmed about that kind of thing, especially with this rather difficult energy, which I described in the intro extensively about the kind of energy this actually is. There could be criticism, there could be dislike coming from the masses regarding your children. So there might be some attacks on your children. Guard your children now, Pisces people. You know, some group of friends who run your children down, or your children's behavior, and they disapprove, and it makes you angry, and it makes you frustrated perhaps. Or there might be criticism of a lover or a partner, maybe your friends sort of all gather around and say, now, hey, you need to break up with XYZ person because we don't like them and we don't think that you should be going out with them. And you're like, you know, you're feeling attacked. You're feeling like under the aggressive influence of friends or groups who don't like your lover or your person you're dating or something. So all of these kinds of energies of animosity might be really in the forefront. So be forewarned and forearmed, Pisces. And sabotaging, we've already talked about that, by friends, by groups, of who you are and your own ability to express yourself in the world is not unheard of under this energy. So keep your actions and your motives pure now, Pisces. If you're like me, I'm going to haul up on the weekend and just read books all snuggled up in bed because it's winter time here in Australia and I just want to stay cozy and comfy and keep my actions and my motives pure now, not engage in any of this Pluto Mars energy if I can help it. Aries rising, sun or moon people. Well, the energy of Mars, Pluto, is falling for you in the 10th house, 4th house axis. And this is where Pluto's outside influences, the forces of will beyond us, are really honing in on who you are at a deep core level. So you might really feel, Aries people, that you're under attack on the weekend. Forewarned is forearmed, remember? So attacked from authority figures, from bosses, from people in high places of influence and power who are criticizing you, sending aggression into your life. They might be sabotaging your efforts to create a stable base in your life. For some people, for some Aries people, this might be that you have experience a job loss, because isn't that one of the most manifested ways of an authority figure undermining our ability to have a stable home base? Or maybe a boss says you can't work from home anymore, you've got to come into the office, and your whole work-life balance, which is represented by this axis, is thrown off kilter because now you have to spend 5 days a week commuting into the city, and your home life suffers, your family life suffers because of that sabotaging effect of an authority figure or a boss on your personal home life. So you can see how this might play out. The outside world, the big world out there, the powerful forces of authority figures and what have you, play out with a almost like an attack on your home life, your domestic life, and your sense of well-being with your family. It can feel like a sabotaging energy. It can feel frustrating. So be forewarned and forearmed about this. Keep your responses pure. Try not to fly off the handle and get aggressive and violent in response, because that is not helping the energy of this weekend. Cool your heels if you can, and maybe approach an authority figure or a boss or something like that after this energy has dissipated and try and create a win-win situation. Don't try negotiating it under the energy of this weekend, because it's just going to result in like a fight, and you don't want that. But it could feel like raise your cortisol levels. It could just be really difficult because this is an angular axis, and so it exacerbates it. We feel it much more intensely. So love to you, Aries. This could be rather a challenging energy to navigate. Once again, to be forewarned is forearmed. Keep in mind, I will just also point out too that the eclipse is occurring this week as well, which could shift the dynamics. So for example, you might find a boss says, we only want you to work 2 days a week, not 5 days now. So, you know, get out of here kind of thing. And then along comes the eclipse in your 3rd house. And you're like, you know what? Great. House of small business. I'm going to spend 3 days a week selling on Amazon this product that I make at home or whatever. And boom, I'm going to devote my time. And it could be the biggest gift and a blessing. Small business is allowed to flourish because this guy up here has said, I'm going to sort of direct some animosity at you. So don't feel like everything is lost if there's a lot of upheaval this week in that regard for you guys. Know instead that the universe is actually, it always has a way out. When, like, you know the old saying, when a door closes, someone opens a window. That's what's happening this week. There might be some argy-bargy going on here, but there's going to be a window open here. So look for the window, look for the opportunity, Aries people, and praying that blessing floods into your life despite the Pluto-Mars opposition. Now, I just want to say I've probably been pretty heavy-handed with this interpretation as well. It may not play out anywhere near as intensely as I've just described, okay? So take what I've said with a grain of salt, knowing that sometimes the energies come on strong and sometimes they don't. It really all depends on the context of how it is tangling with the planets in your natal chart, how strongly you're going to feel that. So just be conscious that, yeah, it may not be as intense by any stretch as what I've just described. Okay? So, kisses to you guys. Taurus rising, sun or moon people. Well, the energy of the Pluto-Mars opposition for you is falling in the 9th house to the 3rd house. What does this mean? It means that Pluto, the energy of outside forces beyond our control, are in a state of animosity with our own self-will. And the forces outside our control are happening in the 9th house. Inspirational figures, father figures can be seen from here. Spiritual leaders, teachers, yeah, philosophers, that kind of thing. We might be getting, and those guys aren't perfect, you know, we put them up on this guru inspirational pedestal, but they're human beings. Hello, they suffer from the energies of the planets just like the rest of us do. So don't think that because they're 9th house people that they're immune to feeling this shadow energy. There is shadow and light in everything, even the 9th house and the 9th house type people. So criticism, dislike, anger coming from the guru figures, coming from the inspirational figures. I don't know if I should tell this story. I will tell this story. I once went, and it was the most blessed weekend. I went to hear Wayne Dyer and Deepak Chopra speak in Melbourne one time. And I'm a massive fan of Deepak Chopra, but there was a lot of nutters in the audience, let's say, who at question time, anyone was given the opportunity to go up to the mic and sort of ask Deepak Chopra on stage questions. And a couple of nutters got up and asked their questions, and it was like, oh, you could just feel the tenseness in the arena, and you could almost feel the lack of tolerance coming from Deepak Chopra. I adore him. I think he's such a wise man. His books have changed my life, so I am not berating him at all, but he is a 9th house figure to me. And I noticed on this day there was some tenseness and frustration, maybe some might even say a little bit of anger sort of coming at, directed at this person in the audience. So maybe he was justified in that because they were a bit kooky, crazy people. But I just tell that story because it kind of illustrates what might unfold. There might be somebody who you have up here on a pedestal, you admire, and you observe them to be cranky, frustrated. They might even direct criticism towards you. Or maybe this is the house of our skills, our talents, our abilities. It's quite possible that a teacher, an instructive person, might be very critical of our skills, our talents, our abilities, the work we've done with our hands. May I just apologize if you can hear roadworks in the background of what I'm talking about. I said in the intro that outside my window, down on the street, they're doing roadworks today, and so I have to be very warn you about the noise that might be there, and I sincerely apologize, Taurus people. Back to the matter at hand. Be aware of some criticism and dislike in that manner that I've just described. It could even be that your own beliefs are criticizing you, because this is the house of what you believe in, what you think is true, how, in a sense, how you perceive the world through your ethics and morals. Directed here at the third house of your abilities, your skills, your talents. So your own belief about what is acceptable creativity or talent, or an acceptable small business, or acceptable behavior by siblings or relatives, which are third house things as well. You might be very critical of that because, hey, they're not coming up to your ethics. They're not meeting your moral standards in some way. So frustration and aggression and anger, Pluto, beliefs directed at the people of the third house, siblings, relatives, etc. So that's another way that might express. Be also aware of these sort of teacher figures maybe sabotaging you in some manner. Like you submit an assignment to a university lecturer and they lose it. They lose your assignment. I mean, these days with electronic media, maybe that's not such a concern. We might lose that so much, but let's use this illustration as an example. They lose your assignment, and then, it mightn't be an intentional sabotaging of your ability to succeed at university, but there's a sabotaging and perhaps energetically going on there in the ethereal realms because of this energy playing out on this axis. Sorry about the noise in the background. Okay, moving along, Gemini rising, sun or moon people. Gemini people, I need to apologize for the terrible noises in the background. There are roadworks happening on the road outside my house today, and I'm very frustrated by it. So kind of ties in with the energy that we're talking about here with Pluto opposite Mars and this anger, frustration, aggression. I want to go out there and really get the claws into these guys who are only doing their job, but it's ruining my workday. Anyhow, what does this mean for you? This opposition of Pluto and Mars in the 8th house to the 2nd house. Well, it could be that forces outside your control are influencing your ability to make money. 8th house is crime. So forewarned is forearmed, okay, but one of the manifestations that might occur here is that you might be the victim of a crime which leaves you worse off in terms of possessions. Now, this happens. We live in a fallen, let's say, use the term fallen world. I, for one, in the town where I live, I've been broken into 4 times. Don't ever live where I live, honestly. As soon as my kids are grown, I'm out of this town. But 4 times. And had things stolen every single time. That's what happens when people break in, isn't it? So here we've got crime, which is seen through the 8th house, affecting your personal belongings. And this is an energy of aggression, trauma, criticism, frustration, etc. Forewarned is forearmed. You might find that maybe some surgery occurs. This is a house of surgery, and the results of the surgery leave you feeling a little less than valuable. This is a house of self-worth. So, you get fixed up perhaps through a surgery, but there's something about the surgery that leaves you feeling not quite full of self-value the way you hoped you would. That could be a thing too. In fact, I'd encourage you perhaps not to have surgery on this day. Of course, that's all very dependent on your natal chart and what is unfolding with these planets and their relationship with your natal planets, of course. You might also find that there could be some influences of outside forces beyond your control regarding a will. So a will that is, you know, enacted, and you find out you missed out, and the possessions, the money, the financial support that you were counting on from a will, forces outside of your control have said, no, you're not getting this. Frustration, anger, volatility. So something didn't go the way you hoped with a will, and your willpower, Mars, is thwarted. Your ability to create your own stability and security in the financial material world, second house, is impacted by some negative event from the 8th house. A will being maybe given to your brother or your sister, like, or the contents of a will or something like that. It can also feel like some powerful forces beyond our control, and Pluto in the 8th house is about, it does connect to past lives and past life influences and influences of other entities in the beyond, sabotaging our ability to have financial security, stability, and independence in the world. So we can be feeling like we are being under some sort of energetic attack, some psychic attack that's affecting our security and stability in the world. Forewarned is forearmed. You might like to take action to deal with this. Mars is to take action. You know, maybe you get an energy healing session, maybe you see a psychic, that kind of thing. But look, I would leave it a couple of days until after this energy passes and it's no longer impacting. And then go and deal with that feeling of self-sabotage. Because it could just be a futile exercise to try and unravel the energy of this couple of days, really. So Gemini rising, Sun and Moon people, yeah, heavy influences. This is also a house of divorce. If you are in the process of working through a divorce, don't, by all means, do not try and sort out your resources on this day with your ex-partner. It will not go well. You will fight, you will squabble, you'll be, you know, claws come out, you may attack one another. It won't be nice. Wait until this energy has passed to sort out resources and who gets what if you're in the process of a divorce with this energy too. Okay. Cancer rising, Sun or Moon people. You guys have this really volatile energy, which we spoke about in the intro. Hope you listened. I'm sure you did. It's falling in the 1st house, 7th house axis, one of the most important axes in the chart. And this is a very challenging energy. It happens once every 2 years and it only lasts a couple of days, but this is it. This weekend is it. And this is when there could be a lot of criticism coming at you, Cancer people, from others. Now, before I break this down, I want to apologize for the noise that's going on in the background. There are roadworks happening on the street just outside my home. They're very rowdy and frustrating, and I'm like tearing my hair out. So I apologize. So Pluto is forces outside our control, opposing Mars, your own self-will and self-assertion in the 1st house. And Pluto, because he is the further outer planet, is the strong one here, and he's to you, so criticizing you. So it might be coming from clients saying you're no good, we don't like you, your work's crap, you know, really devaluing your sense of worthiness and your ability to assert yourself in the world. You might have to go into damage control. Don't fire up back at your clients. This is just an energy that will pass. But you might be tempted to say, well, screw you, you know, and give them the bird. And, you know, don't get angry. Don't get volatile back. You know, guard your actions now, because you could regret it down the track if you allow it to exacerbate you. But criticism coming from other people, expect it on this day, the 5th and the 6th of June. Expect it. Roll with it. Try and be thick-skinned if you can, Cancer people. I know that doesn't come easy to Cancer strong people. We have our nice thick shell around us if we're Cancer person, but our way of coping with, because we're highly sensitive, is to retreat into our shell. And maybe that's a good strategy. Maybe on this day, retreat into your shell. I know as a Pisces person under this energy, I'm going to be curling up in bed with my astrology books and a nice cup of chai tea and just snuggling in the winter coldness and reading my books and letting the day pass. That's my way of retreating and escaping as a Pisces. And for Cancer people who like to retreat into their shell, why not do that as well? Let it pass, let it flow through you and out the other side, and deal with it when the energy is over in the middle of next week. But to be forewarned is forearmed. So criticism could come from partners, could come from business partners, anger and aggression. If you are a Cancer person in a domestically challenged situation where there might be violence on a regular basis or something, oh my God, please get yourself into a safe space before this weekend unfolds. Your domestic partners, spouses and what have you, could be really exacerbated in their frustration and anger directed at you this weekend. So please stay safe, Cancer people, and put yourself out of harm's way. Yeah. We can also feel under this energy that we have been sabotaged by a business partner, by a colleague, not a colleague, by a client, by our audience, by, our relationship partners as well. One example might be, I'll use an example from my life, you know, people who don't even watch my videos and just go straight on and click dislike, you know, and that happens a lot. You know, I so many of the most wonderful YouTubers that I watch have thousands of dislikes, and I'm like, who dislikes this amazing content? Basically assholes. So that is one example of people outside of you just sabotaging your work just because they can, you know, with no grounds for it whatsoever. So that is an example of what you might experience this weekend. In many levels, it could be as simple as a dislike on a YouTube video that you're getting from your audience, or it could be something way, way bigger than that, and anywhere in between. So sabotaging happening from people out there to you. Protect yourself, put your little shell around you and let this energy pass, Cancer people. Keep your actions and your motives pure under this energy so you don't create karma for yourself and you can stand tall, knowing that you have navigated this energy as best you can. Love to you for this this weekend. Okay. Leo, thank you, my beautiful patient Leo people. Leo rising, sun or moon energy. Well, the opposition of Pluto and Mars for you guys is occurring between the 12th house to the 6th house. Well, this is an interesting one. This 6th house is where all the animosity is coming from. Pluto is forces outside our control. Mars is our ability to assert ourselves in the world, and it's being dominated, manipulated, and sort of gobbled up, if you like, by the energy of the 6th house and Pluto. Enemies. Who do you have in your life, Leo people, that actually are your enemies? Now, Leo, you might be thinking, I don't have any enemies. Well, think long and hard, because everybody's got somebody who's against them somewhere, it seems, you know. Even the nicest, gentlest, loveliest people can have people who just give them the shits. So who in your world is actually acting like an enemy in your life? Those people, be careful around them this weekend. It could be a colleague at work. Oh my God, so me. You know, when I've worked for other people, there's always been one person, at least in the workplace, who has been a real shit. Excuse my language, but that's always been the case. Now, if you're in a workplace and there's one person there who, is jealous of you or undermining you, even if you're the nicest person in the world, be careful that their actions are going to be very present and in your face on this day. Their undermining, their sabotaging of you is going to be visible and clear. So forewarned is forearmed, my beautiful Leo people. Enemies, but also your own ability to function in mundane, ordinary life could be sabotaging you on this day. For example, you know, you want to go and get fit, get healthy, and somehow or other you just keep buying those chips or eating that chocolate or going to the fish and chip shop or something instead of going on your jog or what have you. There is some sabotaging of your fitness, your health, your daily routine, and your intentions that could be also playing out here as well. This is also a very karmic axis. This is our past lives, 12th house. 6th house is how we burn karma. And so it could be that you've really got to guard your actions, Leo, more than any other sign this week. You've really got to be conscious of how you respond to your enemies, how you deal with criticism, how you deal with anger and aggression, and sort of even criminal activity directed at you. Guard how you respond, because on this karmic axis, you could create more karma that you need to unravel in the future. If you handle it with ethics and morals and benevolence and conscious awareness, you'll reap that good karma as well. So be very, very aware, be very conscious. And if you see yourself slipping into frustration and anger or violence and aggression, just pull up and say, hang on, I'm not going into this. I'm going to walk away. And deep breaths and, you know, strategies and what have you for dealing consciously, especially with any difficult circumstances, any difficulties like debt, like bills that need to be paid, sickness, disease, problems that need fixing, things going wrong, malfunctioning, this, that, and the other. 6th house stuff, how you're dealing with those frustrations and the sabotaging coming from those realms is going to affect your karma, and how you handle that. It's very, very important. Finally, you might find that your co-workers, enemies, and your own daily routine is sabotaging your ability to tap into the divine, receive creative flow from the divine, and be in tune with spirit, because this is the house of high level spirituality. So the influence, the aggressive influence of a co-worker or the attack of an enemy might keep you from connecting with your spirit guides, your angels, because you're in such a state of high cortisol, fight or flight with this opposition. To be forewarned is forearmed. Don't beat yourself up if your spiritual experience is a bit blur on this day or these couple of days. Just know, you know, it's going to pass. The energy will end, and then in the middle of the week, things will lighten up again. Try to just flow with it. And if you try to go into that that space of creativity and nothing's coming to you, you want to write some poetry, but there's no flow, just allow that to be. Walk away and come back to it in a few days' time. Okay, don't get too down, because the creative juices that Leo is so renowned for are a bit lacking or not flowing under this energy. So that's what we're seeing for the whiz around the horoscope on the weekend, the 5th and the 6th, with Mars opposition to Pluto. Let's close with a prayer. Well, energy of love, we're facing quite an interesting week ahead, and we're coming out of quite an interesting energy too, with the eclipses that are occurring now. Help us to navigate these energies with integrity and wisdom, and especially with love. May we prioritize love over and above everything else, so that our choices are wise and our actions bear beautiful karmic fruit. And so it is. Well, thanks for joining me. Enjoy the bloopers now, and I'll catch you with another Astro Weather Report next week. Now, right out of the gate, throughout the... I have just Something is revealed. Something is illuminated. No, not something is illuminated, Kesenya. Comes out.